are back on the Zoo with writer and producer Valentina Garza. Welcome to the show.
Bienvenida. Thanks for having me.
All right, let's take a seat on the big old red couch that kind of matches with your plaid shirt, actually.
Oh, well, I didn't really
Was it done on purpose?
Well, I mean, it's fabulous. So
Thank you. All right, 1, 2, 3. Wow!
Red is always fabulous.
Yes, and it's for good luck, too.
Oh, good, yes.
Yes. So welcome to the show. Welcome to our cage.
Thank you.
First of all, tell us a little bit about what the many shows that you've worked on, specifically the one that you're collaborating with right now.
Yes, okay, well, it's been a journey, but I actually started on a Telemundo show as Los Beltrán.
I didn't watch that show, actually.
It was an attempt to do an American sitcom style format on Spanish language.
Yeah,
They didn't get your humor, did they?
It was.
There was a culture clash going on in the writers' room, wasn't there?
It is, and you know, we actually had English-speaking writers, and we would write all the scripts in English, and then they would need to be translated. So
that's insane.
Carlos Bermudez, the executive producer, who's Puerto Rican, and I would stay, and we would translate things, and obviously you can't translate humor, so it wasn't literal translation, but you'd have to find a way to like
and the Latin humor
Latino in
so
there.
different.
Yes, 100%.
So
Wasn't
different.
it though like a Spanish language version of what's this with Archie Bunker, the show with Archie Bunker?
Yeah,
like,
All in the Family.
All in the Family. It was. That's what I read. It was supposed to be a take on that.
Yeah, it's something like that, but it's definitely you know, it was a Cuban woman and her Mexican husband and the unforgiving Cuban father.
Exactly.
Wow.
Okay, I'm Cuban, so I get it.
Living in Bourbon. So that was kind of where I started, where I cut my teeth.
Nice.
They were very gracious. I was able to write my first script there, and then I worked for George Lopez and got my big break on The Simpsons, where I staffed, and I was there for 6 years, and then Border Town, which was a Seth MacFarlane animated show.
Great show that got, like I was telling here on the break, it got a little lost in the fray, but that was, you know, that's one of those shows that was on for one season, and I would check it out. It was one season, right?
One season,
I think a lot of people weren't ready for it. It was just like, it was too real, and people were like, oh my God. At the time, like immigration was a hot topic, and people were like, no, don't do this.
It was very in your face, and we really didn't shy away from kind of dealing with the issues of race, dealing with the controversy, and it came from the Seth MacFarlane camp.
So hyper-politically incorrect.
And very, like, in your face, very edgy. So, people were a little bit nervous about that whole thing, but it was really fun. And it's the kind of humor I love to do. I love to write about issues and things that are important in facing our society and culture.
That's awesome.
Let's work our way back from what she's doing now, which is a big deal. Okay, she's writing on Jane the Virgin. By the way, Rafael Augustin, we've had him on the show, a friend of mine. How's he doing, by the way?
He's doing fantastic.
Okay, good.
The other men on the show are so happy that he's there because we are in a very rare room where the men are outnumbered by women. Yes,
well, that's good.
In Hollywood, yes.
But he's in touch with his feminine side, so he can handle the female environment.
That's right.
And I got a feeling that from what I've seen, also female comedy writers also are in touch with certain, masculine perspectives in terms of humor and stuff like that. So I feel that a comedy writer room is actually a good place where people can get along.
But you tell us, because I feel like when you're the writer, you can't see it from a woman's perspective or a men's perspective. You have to see it from everybody's, because you're like the mastermind behind this whole puppetry, I guess.
Right. I mean, there's no lack of male perspective. I think we get that all the time, so we're very indoctrinated to kind of see things through the male lens. Right. But I think it's wonderful when you're able to bring a different perspective. I think the female perspective is different, the female experience is different, and the female voice can be different. So, but it's also, you're right, you have to be able to kind of put yourself in the place of whomever the character is, and kind of have an emotional connection to where they're at, whether they're male or female, and then think about from a real place, where are they coming from? And so I think that kind of is a little bit more universal than just male or female.
And also, as a writer, right, there's a big responsibility because you voice a lot of things out to the world. So in your perspective, what do you think it's one of the things that the world needs to know about the Latino culture as a whole? Because people stereotype us a lot, but what's that one thing that you think people should know about us as a culture? About the Latino culture?
Well, I guess as a writer, what I feel that I want people to know is that we're not that different. You know what I mean? Because we are, of course, we have our unique culture, and that's one of the things that I love about Jane the Virgin, that it is about a Latino family, but it's not about her Latino-ness.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right,
she is a young woman. She is a teacher. She is a lover. She is a mother. She's a sister. She's a daughter. She plays all of these roles, and she happens to be Latina. And I think that something that's really important in terms of seeing ourselves on television is that, like, there are these very specific stereotypes that people have of us. We're the labor worker and the maid and the valet, but we need to see ourselves as who we actually are, which writers and producers and mothers and sons and nurses,
everything,
soldiers, all of those things.
I mean, which also brings me to this next question, because I would love to know your thoughts about, stereotypes in the Latino industry, in Hollywood specifically, because I've gotten that a lot, me as an actor, like, you're not Latina enough and stuff like that. So we would love to touch that topic, because there's a lot of whiter Latinos that are not as stereotypical, like Carla Souza, for example, working now on How to Get Away with Murder.
Yeah.
Right.
She's blonde, blue eyes,
I
basically.
mean, if you didn't know, I don't think you would know she was Mexican,
Right.
But that those people are having a harder time getting in the industry because people are looking for the stereotype.
Right.
So yeah, I would love to know your perspective on that.
I think specifically, I feel like I have my family. I'm Cuban. That's my heritage, and I come from in a blended mixed race family. Yeah, it's a biracial family, and so my brother looks nothing like me. He is my brother, and so I definitely think it's important for people to understand that Latinos also look like a lot of different things. We have the Rainbow Coalition, so there are Whitinas and Blatinas, and the scariest thing in the world you'll ever run into is a Cuban Chinese person, because you're like, they look Chinese, but they're sassing me, and I don't understand it. So.
The same thing happens in Colombia. There's like a lot of Asian Colombians, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, you speak Spanish?
Yes.
And with like a Caribbean accent like me?
It throws you off.
Surreal,
You're like, the neck is rolling, I don't understand what's going on. She is not passive, she's breaking so many stereotypes. So yes.
But it brings you, there are people that happen to be Latinos, which I love.
One of the things that Latinos are called the cosmic race, because within Latinos you have all races. You really do. You have blacks, whites, Asians, we all come together. I want to ask you, because I've been able to follow Gina from way in the beginning of her career when she was starring in, I forgot what indie movie, she was a rapper, and she was in some of the Step Ups, I think, and now she's this big star, Golden Globe winner. How involved is she in the writer's room? Does she come around and get involved with the plot? Does she... how much does...
She is not super involved in the writing room, but when she does have something to say to the executive producer, we definitely take it to heart. And she'll say things like, I wouldn't speak to my grandmother this way, because Latinos don't, we show respect to our elders, and so she does have some cultural perspective that she brings to things, and so if we don't catch it, which we should, then she is definitely like the litmus test.
And I know you can't speak for the actors on your show, but just coincidentally, a lot of the actors on your show, like Gina, like Jaime, have been very vocal about the underrepresentation of Latinos in all these award shows. What is your take on that? How do you feel about it?
Well, I feel that we can do better. We can do better in terms of the amount of representation we have in front of the camera. We can do better behind the camera, just all around. We're a huge part of the population in California and the United States, and so to be underrepresented specifically in this business is difficult, because we are the ones that are holding out the mirror to the rest of society about what truth is.
Well, maybe we're learning to give each other a hand now more than before, because Latinos tend to be a little bit like, con permiso, quítense, ahí vengo yo. And now it's like, no, let me help you. You go, no, you go.
We close the door behind us when we get in.
Right.
Look, I'm seeing a lot of Latinos in front of the camera, more than ever.
I agree.
What about behind the camera? I mean, obviously yourself, and there's writing staff in the Jane Diversion.
Yeah.
Are there a lot of Latino writers in Hollywood?
Well, I have to say that I know all of them, so it feels like I know.
That's okay. That answers the question. Let's take it with both hands. Let's take it back.
No, I mean there's definitely, we are growing. We're growing. It's slow. Es una lucha. You know what I mean? But and it's nice to not feel alone anymore. It's nice to be able to pick up the phone or grab a cup of coffee and talk to somebody.
Pick up the phone and call us. We'll hang out. I want to take it back to The Simpsons because we grew up on The Simpsons. It's very influential in the way we see the world. And what was it like? What was that writing room like? And were you the only Latina in the room?
Yeah.
But like your perspective is so important though. Like that was so important, I think, to have you there, just in terms of perspective and like getting that.
Yeah, I mean,
worldview.
it was an amazing perspective. I felt like a minority on a gazillion levels. It is a very
Gazillion levels.
It is a very well seasoned show. Obviously, I started in season 19. So people were incredibly intelligent. They're geniuses. It was very white male and Harvard, especially. So it was like, and I was like, I didn't go to Harvard. I'm Latina. I have boobs. This is a very different situation. So, but it was. It was a wonderful place to cut my teeth, and I learned so much.
What are some of the things that you think you added to that room that maybe when you left there was some sort of acknowledgement that hey, this is what she brought to the table?
Well, interestingly enough, I think it's. I don't know if it was so much what I was bringing culturally again, but I think the female perspective was really important. There were times that people would say, I was one of 2 women on staff, and they would ask us, it was a very big staff, I think we had like 24 or so. And then they would say, 20. Is that true? Is that what women would say? And then the other writer, Carolyn, would say something. I was like, yeah, no, I disagree. I wouldn't say that at all.
But that shows the diversity even within groups.
Yes.
You can't pin any one group on any one person.
Absolutely.
Guessing the future.
No, I know. Totally. Guessing the future.
Oh,